Well, hello, and welcome. If you're new here, hi, my name is Angela. I am a board certified trichologist, which means I know everything about the structure, science, and disease of both hair and scalp. I'm also a product research junkie, and if everything goes as planned, a cosmetic scientist to be. So today I'm going to give you 5 explanations on why you might have fairy knots, and a couple of them you can easily resolve. So let's get into it. Number 1 is a hairstyling thing, and that is that you might be doing too many wash and goes. This is one thing that I've noticed over the years. When my hair was shorter, I absolutely loved wash and goes. I love to see my own hair texture, and even though I would love to rock wash and goes on a weekly, for now I know that with my hair type is a 3C4A, I have a way more tangles, which will result in way more fairy knots whenever I wear wash and goes for a long period of time. This is because it really allows your own hair texture to get tangled into each other, and that is also a big reason why curly girls tend to have more fairy knots than straight hair, because they can just coil up in each other, resulting into a single-stranded knot, also known as fairy knots. I like to call them fairy knots. I feel like it sounds a little bit more positive, even though it's not really a positive thing. And that might be the reason or why you're having them. I've experienced that myself, and I've really been noticing that over the past 2 years, I really am rocking way more braid outs, more twist outs, and I've seen less and less fairy knots. So I do really feel like because you're flattening out the cuticle and you're smoothing down the hair and really put it into one direction, the tangles will be less. Another thing is that you're not washing and deep conditioning it often enough. Now, this also depends on your hair type, but what I've been noticing is that whenever people like to, for example, rock a wash and go or even a twist out and keep it in for not a week, but over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you will see you'll have more shedding, obviously, because it will be stuck inside of this hairstyle. You have more knots, which also will result into more fairy knots, because not only did you allow your hair to tangle more, you also skipped multiple opportunities of re-moisturizing it and making sure that all the fallen out hair has been removed. So it is a vicious circle where you will be in. The only difference or the only exception I would say would be whenever you're rocking like cornrows, box braids, like protective styles where the hair isn't as free as it would be, for example, like this with a twist out. Because then the environment is controlled, if that makes sense, where the state of the hair is controlled. Number 3, and that is something that I already actually mentioned in the 2 other reasons, and that is your hair type. Coilier textures tend to have more single-stranded knots than sleeker textures. It just has to do with the texture of the hair and the chances being higher of it tangling into each other just due to the pattern of the curl or coil. This is not really something that we can do anything about because it's just genetics, but it's all about how you do the hairstyling part, which will prevent most of it. Reason number 4 is friction. If you have too many things that cause friction, you will damage the hair shaft, which will also result into more tangles, which results into possibly more fairy knots. Now, when I'm talking about friction, I'm right now really talking about the areas where your hair on a daily basis needs to deal with. So for example, when it's winter time, your knitwear, it rubs. That's also what I notice. My fairy knots are way more in my neck area than it's on the top, just because this is going to way more friction during the day, even like rubbing on my cotton tank top, for example, than the top part. The top part though is more exposed to light, which also damages, but this friction is more damaging for my hair type, if I talk out of a personal experience, than the top being exposed to sun. And I also use products that have UV filters that help out with that. But this friction with scarves, with shirts. A lot of the times it's inevitable when you are when you have a certain length of hair, but it is something to be aware of, that might be the cause of your fairy knots, especially if you feel like they're situated mostly on the bottom of your hair. But also when it's nighttime, I know that a lot of naturals nowadays really invest in a good silk cap or a silk pillowcase or satin pillowcase. Please do so, because also the cotton when you sleep on, not only for your hair but also for your face, can be very drying, and it causes way more friction, which will also result into more fairy knots. Now the last one, and I think it's a very important one, especially during winter time, and that is that you're not sealing your hair, and most specifically your ends. Sealing the ends with an oil, a butter. You can even use a silicone based product, which I nowadays prefer. Really gives a little layer on that hair strand, making it also way more smoother to work with, which will cause less friction, 1, less tangles, 2, protects it, and eventually in less fairy knots, which is what we all want. Another thing that I do have to say is that fairy knots, just cut them out. I've seen a lot of people doing methods with using like needles to get them out of the knot. It's very time consuming, and that needle can also causes damage to the strand that you're working on, which will result into damaged hair either way. The number one tip whenever you see them is to cut them off, because they won't get any better after that. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you found this helpful. If you have any other tips yourself that you would like to share, put them down below, or if you have any other requests on what video I should do next, also put it down below. Please stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!